And now we are going to speak about aerospace. I don't know if maybe you don't know that in Valencia region there is PLD. PLD was the first European private company who launched a rocket. You know, in Spain we are very brave. And this small company was really a startup. They have launched the first private European rocket, the Mura-1. I think the next one will be the Mura 2, 3, 4, and now we are the Mura 5. So here, of course, we are also in the aerospace land, and therefore we would like to speak about the aerospace now. And I invite to the floor the COO, the Operative Chief Officer of Gaia-X ASBL, Roland Fadrany. He has a lot of experience, and he gives a lot of experience to the team. Thank you, Roland.
Hello, welcome. I'm really looking forward to this panel. It's about aerospace, but it's also about what you can learn from an aerospace project when very different players come together in a Gaia-X data space. So we will have Caroline, I hope, online from the
yes,
DLR.
I'm here. Hi, Roland.
Hi. And then I invite Kai on stage from deltaDAO, a technical enabler. Arno from Neusta, and finally Sandra from Airbus. Okay, let's get started. Sandra, Airbus is a very active member in Gaia-X, and we would be interested to understand why did Airbus join Gaia-X and did the decision to invest a lot. You're very active. It's not just a membership, it's really a very active membership.
Thank you, Roland. So, first of all, good morning, everyone. It's a big pleasure to be here in Valencia this morning with all of you. To coming back to your question, so aviation is first and foremost about safety. So really, we have high level of regulations, data protection, sovereignty regulations, etc. And it's really impacting everything we do. So for us, all this digital transformation is very important. So we started in Airbus back to 2016 with our own digital transformation. We're really pushing for very strong digital foundations, moving to cloud, IoT, AI, etc. But we cannot do it alone because the aviation industry is a very complex ecosystem with a lot of partners. We have, of course, the industrial manufacturers, the OEMs, the SMEs. We have our airworthiness authorities. We have our customer base, and we have a very complex supply chain. It's very large, very scattered as well, and we had very high barriers of collaboration. And that was the reason, one of the major reasons why we decided to join Gaia-X, really to try to lower these collaboration barriers with the Gaia-X principles and the trust framework, for example, that Christoph explained this morning.
Thank you. Caroline, COOPERANTS, the Lighthouse project as such is done, and you developed a blueprint for the aerospace domain. What is the role of that blueprint or the future in internationalization of the federated data economy for aerospace?
So yes, first of all, also hello from myself to the audience, to everyone there. I see also the colleagues from the COOPERANTS project. Hi. So yes, the COOPERANTS project is done. We have achieved to build up the first blueprint or demonstrator of how such a data ecosystem could work in the aerospace domain. And I think with what we have built there, we have made the first step in preparing for how we envision the future in the aerospace, so aeronautics and space domain. So if you think about Conway's law, I don't know if you know that, like if you envision an architecture for something you want to build, mostly the architecture of what you build is somehow mirrored in the organizational structure. So if we are thinking about in the future building complex international collaborative missions or setting up a business that is quick, agile, competitive and resilient, For both these different cases, a data ecosystem and a data space such as we have built with Cooperants will be the perfect basis because it's built on trust, as we've heard before. It's built on data exchange, but retaining sovereignty, and it's built on scalability and resilience. So I think we've, together with the team, made a very good starting point in order to transform the domain with regard to those future endeavors.
Thank you, Caroline. Kai, Pontus-X and deltaDAO have been instrumental on making this Gaia-X endeavor work. How difficult was it to onboard participants? It was pretty much the first time or one of the first times. And are you happy with the outcome?
Yes, I'm truly happy with the outcome for a number of reasons. So point number one, it was actually fun. That was good. It was fastly accelerating and it has been successful. And when it comes to the onboarding to Gaia-X, right, we managed to onboard all the participants of COOPERANTS to Gaia-X, and that was successfully verified. We managed to onboard all the services and to verify against the clearinghouses for all the use cases. That was successful. So awesome experience. And one key learning is the technology isn't the tricky part. It's the organizational homework you need to do with your management team and the management buy-in, you know, because there will be signatures in place. And number two, you will take care of your own identity and you need to delegate rights. And that's a huge learning, but it worked out with different speeds for smaller and larger organizations. So very happy. And on the outcomes, we got a new clearinghouse here with neusta Aerospace coming from the project. We got new operators, trusted service operators there, maintaining and federating the infrastructure. And that is what I'm most happy about in the project. We showed that the business models work and that there are business models for all the participants in the ecosystem in a federated manner and not just the centralized data space operator. And this is the prerequisite for scaling, for acceptance with other competitors, working in collaboration. So yeah, truly happy, and it wasn't hard at all. It just takes a bit of time and understanding and management buy-in, and then you go.
Thank you. Arno, neusta, after the project was basically done, this project is a seeding activity to start with something. neusta stepped in on the journey to industrialize what has been started in COOPERANTS. What are your next steps?
So maybe to give the audience a little bit of background, neusta Aerospace is part of the neusta group, but we are very autonomous and we are now a 30-people company. So we are clearly an SME. And COOPERANTS started 3 years ago as a consortium. And what is a very important characteristic for this consortium, it's not a consortium for the reasoning of having one. It was really a federated organization where there's not one horse pulling the train. It was really different actors, participants, and contributors that built COOPERANTS together. We have Airbus Defence and Space, we have OHB, we also have the research institutes like Fraunhofer and DLR, and we have a handful of SMEs. And the bridge I'm trying to build here is that we are looking forward to build the community further. We are looking forward to internationalize this community. Myself, I was one of the people pushing and stressing the topic that I don't like the national silos. In Europe, Europe is federated by definition. And we respect the national sovereignty of each and every member state, of course. We installed the national Gaia-X hubs, which is a great thing to have a local, let's call it local coordination actor in the landscape. Now I kind of feel like we also installed national silos, which prevent us from going the next step. Why is Europe talking about collaboration? What is behind the European digital strategy? We don't have the billionaire tech boys here, like in Silicon Valley, right? We don't have the VCs. We don't have the risk affirmity that we find in the United States. We actually cannot do such a move in the digital technical landscape that we need to do to evolve, to position Europe between the US and China. So behind the European strategy is the idea that many cells that collaborate together come up with that power that a billionaire boy would invest to create one big thing. And so this is what I'm trying to focus on. We as a SME, we are a niche expertise supplier of the Airbus Group. We want to forge these partnerships. We want to forge internationalization. We are learning from orchestrators and tech stack providers how to onboard participants as a clearinghouse. We are evolving to become somehow, and as we have the ALB, the assessment bodies, an authority able to provide that standards, to adopt that standard, to help other participants in the ecosystems to adopt that standard. And this for us is the next step, to really put all our energy into community building, internationalization, keeping the European goals in focus, and keep forging and rolling out the clearinghouses and their mission, and yes, and learning from the IESBL and collaborating with each and every one here to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. Caroline, we have a session tomorrow that is somewhat around translating the business value chain into data. So you've done something similar on cooperants, and so how would you say you use the deliverables of cooperants to drive innovation and resilience?
Yes, you're totally right. We have, in cooperants, we have covered, I think, more than 10 use cases, and some specifically looked into how you can translate a certain part of the business value chain, certain processes into data, and develop a data-driven business model out of that. For just to name, for example, the usage of supplier data, technical interface data in the whole development process that we have realized with cooperants. We've also looked into predictive maintenance, so using telemetry data from operating spacecraft for algorithm training to be able to optimize satellite operations in later phases. So those are two very, very concrete, detailed, very concrete use cases from which we have essentially also then learned the, let's say, blueprint approach to such. Well, first of all, you need to identify the data. You need to identify the different roles in the data space. So data provider, but also the service provider. And you need to identify the exact mechanisms of the business process that you want to solve or optimize in your with your data space solution. So we have learned a lot about those things that we can now carry over to the operationalization phase, as Arno mentioned, that we are carrying over to the community. We are using the lessons learned from the different use cases in our domain roundtable that we have every 2 months, where we introduce the examples of cooperants, and we encourage new partners to join the cooperant ecosystem and to learn from the existing use cases and help them develop their own. And I think by increasing the community, we build up this resilience more or less automatically. So on the contrast to if you have a central provider, if you have many different service providers, even 2 providers for the same business function, you build up resilience of your overall ecosystem by scaling up, by bringing more players into the game. So that will be one important aspect that we will be covering in the next month.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. And I remember when we were in Bremen, we also started the dialogue with European Space Agency to jump on that road, and we're working with them close together to get them on board in the Gaia community and expedite what has been started. Sandra, what's the value Airbus gets both from Gaia-X membership as well as from the Gaia-X trust framework that you have at your disposal?
Thank you. So I need to come back again to this highly complex supply chain. To give you just some figure, 80% of the aircraft is procured by our suppliers. That means that every aircraft is built by millions of parts provided by thousands of suppliers. This is really highly complex. So that brings us three major challenges. First, we really need multi-tier visibility and collaboration, I was mentioning before, to avoid any potential risk, any disruption. Second big challenge, we really need multi-tier traceability to address all our sustainability challenges, reduction of CO2 emissions, compliance with export control regulations, especially in the current political context, etc. And the third big challenge is how to comply as well with the data regulations. And here we're talking in Europe also about data sovereignty. So that's why Airbus, together with some partners, we decided to launch, or we're in the process to launch an aerospace and space data space, what is called DigEdX. And really the ambition is to build this aerospace, together with the space and defense, digital ecosystem to really strengthen our supply chain, securing multi-tier visibility, traceability, etc., and also comply with all the space and aviation regulations.
Okay, thank you. And maybe one additional question: what is the next step from Airbus? What is the next project or thing you're gonna do out of that learning?
DigEdX is we're in the making of DigEdX, as I was mentioning before. It's an association that will really bring the data space for all our partners. So our next step, we are really looking forward to welcoming any new partners that would like to collaborate with us in the aviation.
Okay, thank you. That's a good one, because when we look into the early data spaces that came up, they started to work pretty much inside their ecosystems. And the problem is, at some point, you figure out that your ecosystem doesn't have hard borders. Yeah. And when you want to cross those borders, you better be technically compatible and ideally also compliant. And that is something that we also saw with a couple of projects in Germany, but also in other areas where those collaboration, this interoperability of ecosystems is really important. And so that leads me to a question to Kai. You've supported many of those, actually. Do you see the similarities, and can you elaborate a little bit on what COOPERANTS did, what the other projects did, and how you can maintain this potential interoperability?
Now, after, I would say, onboarding over 180 participants to Gaia-X and 7 Lighthouse projects over the time, yeah, there are some striking similarities between all those projects. Just to list a few. Number one, they all need a solid identity baseline. It's basically the same problem in each data space, how to make sure you actually are who you claim to be. And there, the Gaia-X Trust Framework is perfect and makes it very easy and straightforward to create reusable identities. So a challenge every data space faces. Number two, you all need the same base service. It doesn't really matter if you're agriculture or aerospace or manufacturing or automotive or mobility. Contracting is a necessity. Payment is important if you want to have business sustainability in the ecosystem. Logging, provenance, audit trails. Where does the data come from? Where does the service come from, a digital bill of materials, it's all the same. And this is why we really recommend to go outside the little bubble of a maybe publicly funded project and talk to the others and collaborate, not to replicate efforts, but to find out what is most scalable and working best. So that's really a lesson learned from all the project. Don't try to chase the rabbit on your own. There are many established open source components, best practices already available. And yeah, that's really straightforward. And then we see the services that are used in manufacturing, they are also used, of course, in aerospace and space and defense later on. You need those digital product passports. So why do not reuse the models others have already been created? It's really a great enabler. It will save you a lot of time and money. Those go away from the silos, go more towards the others, because alone it will be really hard to reach the threshold to be economically viable. You need to work together with the others.
Thanks, Kaya. I fully agree. I once said if we're not careful about interoperability, the data spaces of today will be the silos of tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a tough decision. I mean, it's not really tough, right? Either you become interoperable and scalable, and my perspective is if it's not scalable, it doesn't matter at all. It will be dead really soon. And the other way is just you can waste a lot of resources trying to fight the others and fighting for market share, but all those valuable resources will be missing when you scale together, and that is what we need to do here in Europe.
It's very interesting because I remember Pierre, I don't know if no, I think he went back to the TechX. Pierre had in Paris at the summit a question to the audience whether the audience sees 5 data spaces or 1. And I think that is very funny when you talk about market share, because if you only see 1, everything contributes to market share because there is no one, there's just one market for data sharing. Arno, there is a white paper, I don't know how far it's known by the audience, a white paper about data space and data economy in aerospace. You were part of that team. Can you tell us a bit about it, what it's supposed to do, what's in it?
Well, first of all, this is a great moment to say a very big thank you and to contribute my appreciation to everybody who worked on that white paper. It's really a community effort. A huge thank you goes to the Gaia-X hub in Germany, run by Akatech. The team of Jan Fischer really put a whole lot of work into that. Caroline and I, we are honored and proud to be leaders of the German hub, and we contributed also our ideas. But it's really important to say that everything that came together is a community, a collective effort. It's a co-created document. That's really important to put emphasis on that. The first draft came from that corner. Then we opened it. We addressed Airbus, we addressed OHB, we addressed other organizations and actors in the landscape. And we were very happy that last year in the summit in Helsinki, we decided together with Frederick Sutter that we want to co-create that also with Airbus as one of the market motors, the economy's motors in Europe, one of the biggest organization and in the European market, the aerospace sector and its supply chain. It's really a lot of things are coming together in this white paper. I need to, at this point, to say thank you to Ulrich, who introduced me to Catherine Gestin. I think all these different stories come together, and you asked the question, what is in this white paper? That will be too complex to answer in detail, but you find many different position papers. Of course, this one is trying to put emphasis and find focus for the aerospace industry. We are maybe a step further now than a positioning paper that came out last year, especially because of the Gaia-X maturity. that now has evolved further. In this white paper, we also address what I said before, that it's really so important to think European. And I just posted, I had a very nice discussion over it with Olivier Dion. And myself, let me start there. I'm born in France, I'm born in Paris. I'm a son of a German father, and I grew up in Germany. My mother's Turkish. So I really have the Franco-Aleman background already in my DNA. And since I'm 19 years old, I'm working for the Airbus organization, which in its core has started as a very strong, let me call it showcase for French and German collaboration. And France and Germany, certainly in Europe, are very, very strong actors. And the title of the post is that we have to adapt the Airbus model. Airbus is an organization that did show in the past how you can build planes, which is a super complex and hard task, not like Boeing on one assembly line, centralized in one spot. We are actually shipping plane parts in the Beluga across Europe from one country to the next to assemble a very complex product. And this is proof that we can do it. If you just take that as a metaphor, and this is really, I like that about our white paper. It's the first step into the direction in more collaboration, working together, and opening the centralized mindset of big organizations to a more federated, like Kai described it, living organism in Europe. And I think this is the takeaway of the white paper. And another thank you goes to Victor, who is really also helping to that we have this analogy in the national hubs, and we have the aerospace vertical in the IESBA. I think many people are still holding on to this idea of the European Commission that there is one common European data space for a sector. This is where our sad story begins, that they never announced the aerospace data space. A common data space for aerospace was super sad because I think aerospace is the driving economy in Europe. We know the automotive is very strong in Germany, also in France, but there are examples of national silo economy, right? It's an industry which is very characterized by its nationality and not by a European collaborative effort. Airbus is the model that represents a European collaborative effort. So the aerospace is actually, by the aerospace sector and a common European data space for aerospace would be the perfect use case and rollout for actually the European digital strategy, which stands behind those data spaces. That's what I'm trying to say. And the Manufacturing X initiative going down to the automotive industry is actually just putting emphasis on national silos again. So I think that's super interesting, and that's a takeaway of the white paper. But I could keep talking, but I don't want to take too much time from the others.
Okay, thank you for introducing the white paper. And I like the idea of what's really a pan-European effort and what is not.
Pan-European is, thank you, I was missing that word.
Caroline, one question to you. In the initial phase, in the seeding phase, there was public money in the projects to start projects like COOPERANTS and many others. Then we see that the industry is reacting to regulation, which is basically forced from the outside, and the European Union is brilliant in coming up with regulations. What is needed to get data spaces, or for example, what COOPERANTS did so far, to be driven by intrinsic motivation of the participants? So coming from funding through regulation to an intrinsic motivation to do the right thing.
Well, I think we've talked about the, let's say, business model aspect before. Also, the last question that you mentioned, where you mentioned also your session, transforming your business processes into data. So, of course, one initial motivation is always to enable new business opportunities. With these kind of data space, data ecosystem approaches. So to create new innovative ideas that give you the key to new business opportunities. That's one aspect that will surely drive adoption. But maybe before that, we should already, or we should take a step back, I think, because well, with COOPERANTS, we had this initial team of, I think, 12, 13 players, different organizations that were already, some more, some less, quite ahead in terms of digitization, and then transformed their, let's say, ideas for digitization into that initially governmental money-funded research project. But looking at the, let's say, SME landscape, for example, in Germany, not every SME is already at that step where they have a clear strategy for digitization and a clear idea how to enable that shift from the, let's say, especially in space domain, quite analogous a way of collaborating to a more digitized way. So from what we have seen, also what Kai has described, just by simply onboarding to a data space and going through all those different steps that already provides an entry point into the digitization topic. So to learn about the challenges of regulation, to, let's say, translate those challenges of regulation into a digital process. I think, Arno, we have talked a lot about Data Governance Act and so on, and how data space will enable companies to comply with such a Data Governance Act. And that is already another intrinsic motivation. So to speed up your digitization process and simplify your approach to comply with legislation. So I think with those two, you already have a good base, let's say. And we, with COOPERANTS, with this community building, we also try to make that visible and to convince the SMEs who have, at the moment, not much background about data spaces, to convince them that their participation will enable new opportunities.
Thank you. Sandra, talking about intrinsic motivation, it's great to be pan-European, but you also need to make some profits. How do Gaia-X-based data spaces actually help Airbus from a business side? So where is your business benefit, which actually is the intrinsic motivation in the long run?
So we really expect and we really believe that the Gaia-X principles and our data aerospace and defense data space will really support in our, let's say, is the priority we have right now on business priority, what is really the ramp up of the production rates of our aircraft families. Mentioning coming back to your point, and this is very complex, yes, we have sites, production sites all across Europe, in France, Germany, Spain, the UK, and then the final assembly lines are based in Toulouse in France and Hamburg in Germany, and we also have in the US and China. And to give you some context, in the last 50 years, around 25,000 aircrafts have been delivered all across the globe. According to our Airbus forecast, that the air traffic will more than double in the next 20 years. That translates into roughly 42,000 aircrafts will be needed in the next 20 years for all the players. For us in Airbus, to date, we have really an order book of roughly 9,000 aircraft. That means we more or less have secured the backlog for the next 10 years. But then, in order to meet our customer demand, what is there, we really need to boost, to accelerate, to ramp up on these production rates. And to give just last year, we delivered like 760 aircrafts. The target of this year is roughly 820, and then next year 900, etc., etc. So for that, again, we rely on, and we believe that we need to tackle a lot of angles, of course, but from the digital side, from the data side, we really believe that these data spaces, the collaboration, the multi-tier traceability, visibility, interoperability you mentioned before, and the data, all the data governance, management, sovereignty, will really help us in this business goal.
Thank you, Sandra. That leads me to my last, let's say, formal question, and to Kai. This is, I think, what we want to do here is not only talk about the aerospace industry, but I believe that every data space and every use case can learn from other ecosystems because they are not so different. I mean, I just had a quick discussions in the break with someone who is supporting a large shipyard, and they have a similar situation. They have a lot of suppliers building 80-85% of the ship. The final liability is with the ship maker. And so this similarity manifests in a couple of drivers and technologies in the back end, Kai, and you have such a platform, and we come to that in the afternoon with the orchestrator. What is the biggest value drivers with the Gaia-X integration for you?
So staying in the supply chain now, you need to build a digital supply chain next to the physical supply chain, and that is in all domains and all industries basically the same. And this is where provenance tooling from Gaia-X comes really up to shine, right? So where's the data coming from I'm using to build my physical or next digital product? This is where it really helps through transparency, but also verifiability in real time. Great enabler, automation is a time saver, is a cost saver. That's fantastic. Point number 2, identities. Each company knows how hard it is to onboard suppliers for the very first time, and it's frustrating if you are a supplier and you need to get onboarded in like 20 different companies, and basically you repeat the same process over and over with manual labor. Now we are moving toward an open identity ecosystem where you can start onboarding once and reuse that digital identity. And yeah, European digital identities are the game changer here, and Gaia-X is basically spearheading this and taking this into the digital domain. So great efficiency driver here. I really see that. And what comes from this? Automated contracting. I mean, we've seen it in COOPERANTS. We also see it in the other data spaces. Now you can stipulate legal contracts on data usage agreements, terms and conditions to be signed in like 5 to 20 seconds. Compare that to your normal business pipeline you are using and how it takes days and weeks to stipulate a legal contract, and can be done just as that, and it can be automated. Also a huge, huge efficiency driver here, which we see across all the different domains. So true enablers, and we see that the business models are natively supported by what is being built in Gaia-X. And one faction that is not really present in all these discussions, but should be really invited, all of this is for business continuity, more resilience, and risk management. I mean, these are the geopolitical drivers we are seeing right now, and Gaia-X gives you all the tooling to manage this better in the future. I can now perform my due diligence on any digital service in much shorter time, assess a service, how will it contribute to my operational resilience, supply chain shocks, how will it behave, and I can manage my risk across many different partners in the ecosystem. And this will change these numbers in the background and really change the way you do business. So a lot of value there, and the open identity ecosystem is one baseline, and from that much more is coming and really helping.
Okay, thank you, Kai. We are at the end of this panel, so Caro, Kai, Arno, and Sandra, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you very much for your drive in the Gaia-X community.
Thank you. Bye.